Your sister only gets engaged once. Those were the words my mother used to justify destroying the biggest opportunity of my life. At the time, I was 24 years old, broke, ambitious, desperate to prove myself, and only one interview away from changing everything. My name is Olivia Parker, and for most of my life, my parents made one thing painfully clear. My sister mattered. I didn't. If you enjoy emotional stories about family betrayal, shocking success, and unforgettable revenge, stay with me until the end. Because the people who destroyed my future eventually had to ask me for a favor. And that's when everything changed. Growing up, my younger sister Chloe was the center of the universe. Every achievement was celebrated. Every mistake was forgiven. Every problem became everyone else's responsibility. Meanwhile, I learned early that expectations worked differently for me. If Chloe got a B, everyone said she tried her best. If I got a B, people asked what went wrong. It was exhausting. But eventually, I stopped looking for fairness. I focused on one thing instead: escape. I wanted a career. I wanted independence. I wanted a life where my success wasn't determined by my family's opinions. So after graduating college with honors, I spent months applying for jobs, hundreds of applications, dozens of interviews, endless rejections, until finally, one opportunity appeared: a prestigious consulting firm in Chicago, the type of company that could launch an entire career. After 3 interview rounds, I reached the final stage. Only one meeting remained. One meeting, one chance, one opportunity to change my future forever. The interview was scheduled for Saturday morning, 11 o'clock a.m. I prepared for weeks, bought a professional outfit, practiced every question, researched every executive. I wasn't leaving anything to chance. Then 3 days before the interview, my mother called. "Don't make plans Saturday." I frowned. "What?" "Your sister's engagement brunch." I almost laughed. "I have my final interview." Silence. Then she answered, "Family comes first." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't a casual family lunch. This was the biggest interview of my life. But my mother acted as though it didn't matter, as though my future was optional, as though Chloe's brunch was more important than everything I'd worked for. I told her no, politely, firmly, for the first time in years. I chose myself. At least I thought I did. Saturday morning arrived. I woke up early, nervous, excited, ready. Then I discovered my car wouldn't start. At first, I assumed it was bad luck. A dead battery, a mechanical issue, something normal. Until I opened the hood and found something that made my stomach drop. Someone had disconnected the battery, deliberately, carefully, intentionally. I immediately called a taxi, but things got worse. Heavy storms had hit the city overnight. Road closures, traffic accidents, massive delays. By the time I arrived at the office building, the interview was over. I remember standing in the lobby, completely soaked, completely devastated, watching my future disappear. I begged for another opportunity, another meeting, another chance. But the position had already been offered to someone else. It was over, just like that. That evening, I arrived at Chloe's engagement brunch. Not because I wanted to, because I needed answers. The moment I walked inside, I noticed something strange. My father refused to look at me. My mother looked uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. Then I saw Chloe, smiling, laughing, celebrating, completely unaware of what had happened. Or maybe, not completely. As the afternoon continued, I overheard my parents talking privately. Words I'll never forget. Words that changed everything. My father quietly said, "At least she made it here." My mother nodded. Missing that interview was probably for the best anyway. I froze. Every hair on my body stood up. Because suddenly, I knew. They knew exactly why I missed it. The drive home that night felt endless. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly they hurt. One thought kept repeating in my mind. Why? Why would my own parents do this? Why would they destroy the biggest opportunity of my life? For Chloe? For a brunch? For appearances? None of it made sense. But deep down, I already knew the answer, because my dreams had never been important to them, not the way Chloe's were. The following week, I confronted my parents, directly. No excuses, no avoidance, just one simple question. Did one of you touch my car? The silence that followed told me everything. My father looked away. My mother crossed her arms. Neither answered immediately. Finally, my mother sighed. Olivia, you're being dramatic. Dramatic? My career had just been destroyed. My future had been delayed. And somehow I was the problem? Then my father spoke. It was only one interview. Only one interview. The words hit harder than any insult, because they didn't understand. Or maybe they didn't care. That was the day something changed inside me. Not anger, not revenge, distance. For the first time in my life, I stopped trying to earn their approval. I stopped explaining myself, stopped defending myself, stopped hoping they would finally choose me, because they never would. 3 months later, I moved out. A tiny apartment, old furniture, barely enough money to survive. But it was mine. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Life wasn't easy. I worked 2 jobs, a receptionist during the day, freelance consulting projects at night. Many nights I slept only 4 hours, sometimes less, but every setback taught me something valuable, and every challenge made me stronger. Meanwhile, Chloe's life looked perfect, at least on social media. Expensive dinners, luxury vacations, designer clothes, engagement photos, family celebrations. Everything looked flawless. Then something unexpected happened. One of my freelance clients recommended me to a startup founder. The founder needed help fixing problems inside his growing company. I accepted immediately. I couldn't afford not to. What started as a small project became a larger one, then another, then another. Soon people began noticing my work. For the first time, clients weren't hiring me because they felt sorry for me. They were hiring me because I delivered results. And that changed everything. Over the next 4 years, I built a consulting company from scratch. No investors, no family support, no connections, just long hours, smart decisions, and relentless determination. The company grew slowly at first, then quickly, then unbelievably fast. By year 5, we had employees in multiple cities. By year 6, major corporations became clients. By year 7, business magazines were writing articles about us. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know my story. Everyone except my family. Because nobody bothered telling them. And honestly, I preferred it that way. Then one afternoon, my assistant walked into my office. She looked surprised. Olivia, you need to see this. She handed me a resume. At first, I didn't understand why. Then I saw the name. Chloe Parker, my sister. I stared at the paper, reading it twice, then 3 times, because it couldn't be real. Yet there it was. Her application, her experience, her request for employment. At my company. Apparently things weren't perfect after all. Her engagement had ended years earlier. The lifestyle disappeared. The money disappeared. The opportunities disappeared. And now she needed a job. A real job. The irony was unbelievable. The same family that once treated my career like a joke, now needed the career I built. A few days later, Human Resources scheduled final interviews. I reviewed the candidate list. And there she was. Chloe. Interview scheduled. Wednesday, 10:00 a.m., my office. For several minutes, I sat quietly, thinking, remembering, the lost interview, the sabotaged car, the years of rejection, the nights I cried myself to sleep, the opportunities I lost, the future they delayed. Part of me wanted revenge. Part of me wanted to reject her immediately. Part of me wanted her to feel exactly what I felt. But another part of me wondered, what would success look like if I became exactly like them? Wednesday finally arrived. At 9:58 a.m., Chloe entered the building. Nervous, hopeful, completely unaware. She smiled politely at reception. She had no idea who owned the company, no idea who would conduct the interview, No idea what was about to happen. At exactly 10 o'clock a.m., my assistant opened the conference room door. "Ms. Parker, the CEO will see you now." Chloe stood, collected her resume, straightened her jacket, and walked inside. The moment she entered, she froze. Because sitting across the table was me. The moment Chloe walked into the conference room, she froze, completely froze. For several seconds, she simply stared at me, unable to speak, unable to move, unable to process what she was seeing. Because the last time she had looked at me, I was struggling to build a future. Now I was sitting in the CEO chair. The very company she was applying to join belonged to me. "Olivia?" Her voice barely came out. I smiled politely. "Good morning, Chloe." The room became silent, painfully silent. She slowly sat down, still staring, still shocked, still trying to understand how everything had changed. And honestly, part of me understood exactly how she felt. Years earlier, I would have been just as surprised. For a few moments, neither of us talked about the past. We discussed her resume, her experience, her skills. The interview felt professional, almost normal, almost. Then Chloe finally asked the question, "You're the CEO?" I nodded. "Yes." She looked around the room, the office, the city skyline behind me, the executive team photographs on the wall, the success she never imagined, and suddenly tears appeared in her eyes. I didn't know. The words sounded genuine, and strangely, I believed her. Because unlike my parents, Chloe had never directly sabotaged me. She benefited from favoritism, but she wasn't always the one creating it. Then she said something unexpected. "I'm sorry." The room became quiet again. Very quiet. Because I had waited years to hear someone from my family say those words. "I'm sorry for everything." She lowered her eyes. "For not standing up for you. For pretending nothing was happening. For letting Mom and Dad treat you differently." I didn't answer immediately, because some wounds take years to heal, and some apologies arrive long after the damage is done. Finally, I asked a question. "Did you know about the interview?" Her eyes widened. Immediately. That reaction told me everything. "What interview?" I told her about the consulting firm, the final round, the sabotaged car, the opportunity I lost, the career path that disappeared overnight. Chloe's face turned pale, completely pale. She looked horrified, not guilty, horrified, as though she was hearing the story for the first time, because she was. "Olivia," her voice cracked. "I swear I never knew." And for the first time, I realized she was telling the truth. The real problem had never been Chloe. The real problem was the system my parents created, a system where one child mattered more. One child received support, one child received excuses, and the other learned to survive alone. A week later, I invited my parents to the office. Not for revenge, for closure. When they arrived, they looked nervous, very nervous, because by now they knew the truth. They knew what I had built, they knew what I had become, and they knew they had underestimated me. My father looked around the executive floor, speechless. My mother looked overwhelmed, almost emotional. Finally, my father said, "You did all of this?" I smiled slightly. "Yes." For several moments, nobody spoke. Then my mother began crying. The same woman who once told me family brunch was more important than my future. The same woman who dismissed my dreams. The same woman who never believed in me. "We were wrong." Her voice trembled. "We were so wrong." For years I imagined hearing those words. I thought they would feel amazing, victorious, satisfying. But they didn't. They felt sad. Because no apology could give back the years I lost. No apology could return the opportunities I missed. No apology could erase the pain. Then my father finally admitted the truth I had suspected for years, the morning of my interview. He disconnected the battery, not because he hated me, because he believed family obligations mattered more than career opportunities, a decision he regretted every single day afterward. The confession hit hard, even after all those years, because hearing it confirmed everything. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't exaggerated it. It really happened. My mother cried harder. My father looked ashamed, and for the first time in their lives, they fully understood what their choices had cost. Finally, my mother asked the question she feared most. Can you ever forgive us? The room became silent. I looked out the window, at the company, the employees, the life I built despite everything. Then I answered honestly. I forgive you. Both of them started crying, but I wasn't finished. I forgive you because I don't want to carry this anymore. I paused. But forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. The room became quiet again, because sometimes the truth isn't comfortable. Over the next few months, things slowly improved. Not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. For the first time in years, our family stopped pretending, stopped hiding, stopped choosing favorites. And Chloe? She got the job. Not because she was my sister, because she earned it. The same standard every employee followed. No special treatment, no shortcuts, no favoritism. One afternoon, months later, Chloe walked into my office, laughing, holding a project report. For the first time in our lives, we weren't competing, we weren't being compared, we were simply sisters. Sometimes people ask me if getting revenge felt good. The truth? I never got revenge. I got something better. I built a life so successful that the people who doubted me could no longer ignore it. Because the greatest response to being underestimated isn't anger, it's results. The greatest response to betrayal isn't destruction, it's success. And the greatest response to people who don't believe in you is becoming someone they can no longer overlook. If you enjoyed this emotional story about family betrayal, success, forgiveness, and personal growth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And remember, the people who block your path today may someday have to walk through the doors you build tomorrow.